Hey guys, Desolator Magic here. It's time for chapter 4 out of 5, I do believe, of the Kaldheim story. This one's titled Into the Demon's Realm. And this time we start off with Kaya. She and Tyvar Tyvar, the arrogant elf douche, decided to travel to Inner Sturm or whatever it's called via his portal magic to go chase after Tibalt, but that's exactly what he wanted. Insert dramatic stinger here. Just kidding, we don't have the budget. I lied, and I'm pretty sure that one's public domain. So then it says, Kaya stood with Tyvar at the top of a ridge of black jagged rock. Over the lip she could see a tarry morass, spider-webbed with smoldering orange ruptures. Tarry morass is a stripper name. So I looked it up. The word tarry is not an adjective. It is a verb. It means to wait or to delay or to be late, to tarry. And then, of course, a morass is just, a marsh or a bog or whatever. So they completely made up that term to sneak in a stripper name. Just thought I'd point that out. I'm actually assuming it's a typo. So, okay, you know how Tyvar was like, describe what you saw through the portal that Tibalt escaped through. And she's like, I don't know, a bunch of fire and lava and black clouds. And he's like, oh, I know where that is. Let's go. Just effortless. Well, turns out there is a lot more to the story. He says, we made it. I wasn't sure we could. And so Kaya's like, what is that supposed to mean? And he says, the gods sealed this place long ago. And apparently it's not an outgoing seal only, it's a both ways seal. At least that's what he's implying. So after Varagoth, the demon that killed like a billion people, first escaped with powerful runes of warding. I don't like the way they phrase that. They sealed it up with powerful runes of warding after he first escaped. I've never opened an omen path here. No elf has, but Tibalt must have somehow damaged the wards. So he heard from Kaya that Tibalt opened a portal and just went there, and he's like, that's odd, he shouldn't be able to do that. So he just tried to do the same thing, and then it worked, and he's like, wow, that worked. That's weird, it wasn't supposed to. Thus, why he believes that Tibalt has damaged the magical runes. And remember, he was able to open in Valkyrieville, like a hole or whatever in the barrier magic runes or whatever, to let Koma in and attack all the Valkyries. So it appears that the sword he's using, or the magic that he's running through the sword, is extremely dangerous, but the sword is made out of the sap of the world tree, so that makes sense. In fact, it looks like they're pretty smart because it looks like Kaya actually figured out, she says to herself, that sword, it hadn't been any kind of magic she'd seen before. Nothing like the portal Allrund had opened. We've got to get that sword away from him. If he can rip open the doors to this place, who knows what else he can do with it. I'm going to take a wild guess that that's really, really like shallow foreshadowing of like he can cause a Doomscar with it. Or as he described it, the Mega Ultra 10X Doomscar extravaganza with all the realms. Or maybe it was just me who described it that way. So it turns out when Tibalt had metaphorically said he wanted to now drag the sword and leave a path, he actually meant it very literally. He basically drew like a glowing arrow by like cutting through the, I don't know, pumice or whatever, igneous rocks of some classification. So it's literally just like an arrow that says go this way, followed by, I guess, some straight lines where he was literally, not figuratively, dragging the sword to literally leave a path behind him. And then, I mean, to top it all off, Kaya says, well, among the many things Tibalt's been accused of, subtlety is none of them, right? I mean, this is like scary movie, parody movie kind of thing, where it's like, danger this way, go this way. Let me just say, from a tactical standpoint, if somebody wants you to follow them, they're probably not bluffing. You should probably do literally anything else and just formulate a different plan. I bet they're going to follow it. So Mr. Arrogant Elf is like, let's try this, and he uses his transmutation magic to turn the lava into cooled rock, which is obviously not that hard, and kind of makes like a bridge to go over the lava instead of trying to jump from, small floppy island of rock to small floppy island of rock and then maybe, fall in the lava. But then as soon as he opens his eyes and the spell is done, he's like, oh, that actually worked. And remember, this is the guy who is a planeswalker but didn't realize it. He traveled to Zendikar and picked up like a hedron, made a necklace out of it, and thought, oh, this must be one of Kaldheim's other realms. But then also knows what magic you need to open an omen path and travel between the realms. So he clearly knows the difference, clearly knows that it's a completely different type of magic. I think he's just an idiot. So as they're walking, she tries to kind of explain it to him. She's like, yeah, you got like a realm thing going on, but there's like a plane thing going on, and there's no branches and giant animals in the spaces between. Wrong. The Eldrazi live in the spaces in between, called the Blind Eternities. That is where they're native to. And the Ur-Dragon. And I could go on. Then it kind of turns into an argument where he's like, yeah, I don't really want to travel to other planes. There's enough realms here, and if I leave, nobody's going to write stories about me. Just then, they were approached by a ship of all things, sailing somehow through the magma. They launch a couple javelins at them, and the first one almost hits Tyvar. The second one would have, but apparently Kaya can turn his torso into ghost energy or whatever. So that's a thing. There are at least 3 big scary demons on the boat, so it's time for battle. So 2 of the dudes fly over from the boat to the bridge and start swinging around some big heavy weapons, and Kaya, of course, dodges, obviously. Then goes to where one of the big, huge, heavy javelins landed and kind of phases it so she can pick it up, throws it while it weighs nothing, and then makes it solidify again after it had already picked up all that inertia. Why, yes, that is a violation of the laws of physics in the basic fabric of the universe. Thanks for pointing that out. But yeah, she ends up getting it going at a speed higher than even when it was initially thrown at them, and it just goes straight through one of the demons, right through his armor, right through his chest. Boom, he's dead. You can't lower the mass accelerated then raise the mass without dropping the amount of velocity, really. I mean, you can't do that. But yes, it's magic. I don't care about no magic. I care about physics. The magic was phasing it out and making it lighter. Okay, after that, the physics kick in. I'm just saying. She didn't use magic to accelerate it. So, Mr. Elf Dude's kind of cornered by the other 2 demons, and so Kaya comes over and tries to ghost pull the heart out of his body, despite every other description of how her powers work. Shocker, it didn't work, and she burned her hand. Duh. So now Demon Dude's pretty mad, so she just turns the I guess the part of the boat below him into, I don't know, ghost mode. And he falls through the boat. Oops. Oh wait, no, it says she jumped on the boat to help him fight the demons, but she turned the part of the rock path into ghost form. So now they're on the rocks on the bridge, I guess. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, it turns out lava's a lot thicker than you think. Kind of hard to really kind of sink in. So he just kind of gets his legs in it, and then she's like, and then turns the ground back into solid form, which, you know, you really don't want solid rock solidifying inside of your stomach, or really just torso in general. That's quite bad. Believe it or not, with the phrasing of what actually happened, it's not clear, but I'd like to think that that's what she did. So Tyvar, he made the little knife that's attached to his bracer really long and superheated because, you know, transmutation magic. He's basically from Full Metal Alchemist, and he fights only 1 demon now instead of 2, so he's like kicking his ass, and eventually gets him in the arm, then gets him across the throat with it. Let me just say, automatically cauterizing your opponent's wounds with a hot blade, not the best tactical decision. So since everything is legends and stories and reputations with these people, Tyvar, actually, wait, didn't I name him Tyler? Tyler says, whoa, I've never seen a human that could take down a demon twice their size. This is amazing. I'm going to tell all the storytellers about this when I get back. You're going to be famous. And she's like, oh my God, whatever. But then, of course, Kaya says, okay, cool. How are we splitting the loot? Did you get any rare drops? How much gold is he carrying? Did you level up from this? I got 500 XP. So anyway, he was especially impressed that she took him down with no weapons, but I mean, besides burning her hand because she doesn't know how her own magic works, I don't think she really needs a weapon, but okay, I guess that's what she's used to using. So she's like, yeah, I'd prefer I be armed though. And he's like, wait a minute, I do transmutation. So no joke, they actually do go grab the magical loot and weaponry off the demons. So there's a huge, huge warhammer that probably weighs like 100 pounds. And Kaya's like, it's a bit heavy for me. But then Tyvar pushed his fingers into the black iron of the hammerhead as if it were mud. Neat. He grabbed 2 fistfuls of metal out of it, complained about the quality of the alloy, and then said, okay, well, might as well turn them into small metal seeds, bury them in the basalt, which they said a second ago was pumice. He buries them in the igneous rock, and then says, oh, this place is desperate to grow something, so opposites and magic and crap, and then they grow 2 hand axes. And then he actually explains how transmutation magic works differently in every realm. And she's like, well, what about the trolls? And he's like, oh, well, trolls, just sit there for years at a time, and they basically are boulders. They almost are part of the earth. They let moss grow on them. So when he turned the trolls to stone, he was just nudging them closer to what their nature was similar to. So here, I guess the green ley lines of mana were like, wow, this place sucks. There's nothing alive and nothing grows. I really want to grow something. So it would be desperate enough to even grow metal. So when he plants little metal seeds and then uses, green magic, it grows them into, instead of a plant, 2 weapons. Kinda convenient, random and weird, but, kinda neat. So if you thought that my characters in D&D loot hard, wait till you hear what they did. And remember, my cleric in D&D, after we killed the dragon, was like, hey, can I steal all of its blood and sell it? And our DM's like, that's not on the loot table. And I'm like, yeah, but it's dragon blood. I'm stealing all of his scales, his blood, and probably some of his teeth because YOLO, and also it's probably worth money. And he's like, we don't even have an artificer in our group. And I'm like, money, let's sell it. And then he didn't let me do it because the book didn't say so. I loot stuff that isn't even in the book. That's how hard I loot. But Kaya and Tyler stole the boat. Yes, the demon longboat that can sail through or on top of lava. They were never particularly specific. So even though they didn't know where they were going, by sheer luck, they went the right direction and then happened to see in the distance some funny colored lights that weren't red or orange, which in this plane was very rare because everything's red. And Kaya's like, hey, that's that inter-realm god magic color aurora crap. It was around the edges of the portal that Tibalt opened. And also Alrune glowed with it. How convenient. Let's go that way. And then even though the realm has been completely sealed off, and Tyler has never been there before, he says, oh, that mountain is Blood Crag. I thought I'd never actually get to see it. What, have you seen a picture book of it? Did you go to a good school? How the hell do you know what that is? You've never been there. So no joke, Kaya's like, I'd rather be doing my job and going after, Vorinclex, the monster that I was hired and am currently being paid to kill. But also she hates Tibalt, and also she said, quote, but that horned bastard has so many enemies, I could probably find a buyer for his head. Chandra, maybe. Ooh, I kind of want to read the stories that I missed, but they paywalled it, so right after Hell freezes over. I do wonder what the history between those two was. So as they're climbing the mountain, which actually is fairly easy because somebody carved some stairs in the side of the mountain, though the stairs are not for human and elf size, so they're having fun with that one. They see at least a couple dozen ships all kind of pull up to the edge of the lake where they were. So they kind of put 2 and 2 together and they say, okay, they're obviously not here for us, and obviously Tibalt is up there. Oh crap, they hate being trapped here, and Tibalt has the ability to, with his sword, open the realms and cut through like wards. Uh-oh. And then finally she says, oh, he's going to use the sword to start a Doomscar. Well, a Doomscar is when the, tree branches, they weren't too clear on this, but the branches of the trees kind of move and then 2 realms collide just kind of randomly. And the sword makes it so that you can, open a portal between the realms, but it doesn't move an entire realm to smash into another one. I mean, can you imagine the amount of magical energy that would take? Unless that is what it does, and they're probably going to say that, but I just find that very hard to believe. So anyway, when Miss Stealth here practically yells, it opens portals, rips holes into space between realms. He's going to start a Doomscar. Turns out she fails her stealth check, and from behind her says, correction, I already started it. Yeah, so much for sneaking up on Tibalt there, Miss Ghost Assassin. Good job. So after failing to sneak up on Tibalt and ambush him in any way, or pickpocket him, steal the sword, assassinate him, knock him out, gather intel, anything smart, now she, in front of Tibalt, loudly says, we've got to get that sword away from him. Yeah, just shut out all your plans. So Tyler's all bouncing around between rocks and, jumping and doing his little acrobatics act. And then Kaya's just like, I'm running straight at him. And anytime he throws fire or stone or anything, or, there's a pile of stone in her way, she just phases through it. Imagine that. You're sitting there launching, fireballs from your hand and, she phased through it. Oh, there's a rock in her way. Doesn't even bother walking around. Phases right through it. Damn, Kaya's going full I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. When she was 10 feet away, she took one of the new axes off of her belt, hurled it at him, and kind of nicked him in the shoulder. When she was about to basically finish him off, he takes a deep breath and exhales a massive, massive smoke screen. Starts burning her eyes, she can't see anything, and probably should have respect one of her feats into blind fighting, or blind sense, or whatever. My rogue got that at like level 17, just saying. So while she's still in the smoke and can't see anything, she hears in her head, "It's not too late to run. It's done anyway. Tibalt already started the Doomscar. What are you still doing here?" Then it continued. "This plane's problems aren't your problems. You owe these people nothing. Go on, jump through the blind eternities. Get out of here. Save yourself. It's what you're best at after all." It's called a tactical retreat, just saying. And it seemed like, something's going on with the smoke, kind of making her weaker, and then something's going on with, like, the voice making her, I don't know, like, control her or something? Because she could feel the magic energies building up like she's about to planeswalk, and she's like, okay, well, I'd prefer not to. And then it just says in her head, "It would be so easy. There's nothing left for you here except pain." And the weird thing is the voice she says kind of sounds like her own. Just then, she sees a bright, colorful glass come arcing towards her in the smoke. This is why you don't make your sword quite so flamboyant. I mean, the Aurora colors, it's hard to miss. So then he says, "You couldn't just leave, could you?" He literally gave her like 1 second. But the smoke weakened her and she couldn't bring her axe up to block the blade in time. But wait, Tyler is here. He caught the shimmering god sword on the dagger fixed to his bracer. Now, I didn't think this is the first time Tibalt saw him. I thought he saw him earlier. Or no, maybe he awoke the trolls, then left, then Tyler showed up. I don't know. Anyway, he's like, "Who in all the hells are you?" And since Tibalt really sucks at using a sword, he's more of a dagger guy, even he'll admit, and did at the end of the chapter, yeah, Tyler has no problem knocking the sword out of his hands. So, of course, he introduces himself as Tyvar Kell, Tyler Kell, Prince of the Elves, greatest hero in Kaldheim. And whoopsies, it looks like Tibalt's losing concentration on his mental spell. The fog was starting to clear from Kaya's head now, as she could feel where Tibalt had slipped into her mind. And then she thought to herself, wait, why did it work on me, but then Tyler was unaffected? That's odd. And then she actually phrases it like, he charged into the smoke same as her. But why weren't his doubts, his insecurities, and all that slowly sucking the life from him? Unless he didn't have any. Oh my gosh, he's too young, too arrogant, too dumb to doubt himself. Oh, thank the gods of Kaldheim for that. So Tibalt scrambles back, gets ready with a fire spell in his hand, but then it says Tyler grabbed him by his collar and flipped him over one shoulder. That crashed him into one of the stone stairs and totally knocked the breath out of Tibalt. So then Tyler holds up his blade to his throat and says, "Now, fiend, you will tell us what you've done." Doesn't he know he can planeswalk away at any moment? I didn't read ahead or anything, but I have the sneaking suspicion that's what he's going to do. But for now, he just says, go see for yourself. Oh, and then, oh my gosh, I was right. You know how planeswalkers each have their own unique method and magic that they use to start a planeswalk? Yeah, Tibalt's eyes glowed, and then his whole body burned up like paper and kind of dissolved into a mass of orange cinders. And then Tyler's like, he... And Kaya says, yeah, planeswalked. See, it is handy. See, Tyler went all, reject planeswalking, embrace monkey before, but now he's probably like, oh, neat trick. Now, this I don't quite get. He says, oh, what if he returns? And then Kaya replies, he can't, not for a while anyway. And if he does, he'll be no threat to us. It takes lots of magic to jump planes, and he'll need to recharge. I mean, that's the first I've heard about it. I'd almost kind of assume that was the case. But I feel like they've almost contradicted that in the past. I thought there was at least one fight, I don't know who with, where they planeswalked to one plane and then they followed them, and then they planeswalked to another plane and they followed them, and it was in really rapid succession. But I don't know, maybe I could be remembering that incorrectly. And maybe it was, one of them 3,000-year-old planeswalkers that's way good with magic. Well, they notice that at the top of the mountain, there's a bit of a tear in the sky forming, so get out your sky sewing kit. So Kaya's like, okay, we got the sword, and you're from here, go grab the sword and fix the sky. And he's like, okay, even my powers have limits? So there were thousands of demons now pulling up in their boats and flapping their way up the stairs and stuff to the top of the mountain, because they all I guess knew that the sky was tearing apart. And then one demon that absolutely towered over the rest, Varagoth, shows up. So apparently he's not dead, he was just banished to this realm, and he wants to escape. So legit, Kaya's like, this plane's screwed, we gotta go. And Tyvar's like, no. She's like, yeah, do you see the thousands of demons already flying through the scar thing? Do you even know Varagoth's history? Yeah. Let's go somewhere else and try to do better on the next plane. Like, no joke. She says, get to the next plane, comma, try to do better. And he gets pissed. He's like, oh, so this is what your kind does. Disappear as soon as the world pitches a direction you don't care for. Run as soon as things get hard. You and Tibalt aren't so different. So he opens another omen path and is like, bye. Then she realized that her magical self-doubt smoke or whatever had still, charged up her planeswalking batteries, whatever. And she's like, oh, I still got that option, kind of still hung in the air around her. But then she's like, yeah, okay, fine. And follows Tyler through the portal. So if you thought that the level of destruction that Tibalt did to this plane is going to be bad in Chapter 5, just look at what he's doing to the meta in Modern and other formats. It's great. Apparently, the absolute tone-deaf, clueless, out of touch with how the game and mathematics work idiots that manage the rules of the game think that you can cascade into a 2-cost, quote, card, and then cast the, quote, card off of a cascade ability, not a spell, even though clearly it should say spell. Well, that's because to them, a card isn't a spell. A card is a card and a spell is a spell, so... oh, well, I guess you can just cascade 3 into Tibalt and then cast him for 7 for free. Because that's a thing you should be able to do. You know those spells where they put like 2 spells on the front? So it's not technically a DFC double face card, but it's like 1 face with 2 spells on it? Yeah, those were a problem too, and I've already seen a rules change involving them once. Fairly significant one, actually. Now they've got modal DFCs, and not only are they an absolute pain in the ass in a draft, an absolute pain in the ass to play with, because you got to take them out of the sleeve and flip them, or use some idiotic proxy that doesn't have any information on it, like some little checklist card. And between the two, I don't want to do either of them. I don't want any of the cards to have 2 faces. I want them to have a back and a front the way the game was designed, and so does everybody else. They did a survey somewhere, and just like the overwhelming majority of players hated double face cards. So of course they brought him back because Mark Rosewater wants to do things splashy and different and amazing and drastic, because then everybody will think he's so cool and bold. You know what would be a really bold step? Fire him. How about that, Wizards? So anyway, yeah, that among other cards, ironically the other Tibalt as well, are just wrecking everything. And you gotta wonder, since now that I've read the storyline, if that was intended, like, haha, that was the meta humor joke thing. Like, Tibalt shows up and completely wrecks everything on the plane, starts a war, and starts like a 10-way Doomscar. And then also, he shows up and wrecks multiple formats with the 2 cards that he's specifically on. I mean, that can't be a coincidence, right? But why would they ruin 2 formats and have to walk it back with a ban, like, on purpose? That's insane. But how could it be a coincidence? And usually the main character gets pushed. I mean, remember Oko? They usually push the power level like crazy. And in fact, they've had like main character demons that were pushed. They've had main character planeswalkers that were pushed. So they do seem to have this like main character syndrome thing going on, where they really jack up the power like to outrageous levels just because they're heavily featured in the story. And they should probably stop doing that. So I legitimately can't wait to see what's in Chapter 5. I'll probably cover it tomorrow, so watch for that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next video.